This Italian Grand Prix betting picks episode of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content, and contests, including our NFL win totals contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is offering you a chance to win $15 million in prizes with Best Ball Mania 4. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. We're also brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code SGP. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any college football bet. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. We're also brought to you by our college football bankroll challenge. Up to $3,000 up for grabs. Get all the details right now over at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/bankroll. Get ready for speed.
You just wait, sunshine. You just wait.
Get ready for the passion.
To whom it may concern you.
Get ready for the raw emotion.
Sì, ragazzi! Grazie, dai, forza Ferrari!
Get ready for the F1 Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb. Welcome in to another edition of the F1 Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He, as always, is Cody Zeeb. I am Rod Villagomez. To Italy we go for the next round of the Formula One series. It's just been one of those crazy seasons again in which we've seen the same guy win over and over again. But Cody, as we have learned this lesson well, especially after last week, it doesn't matter who wins the race. You can still cash some delicious bets, my friend.
Oh, what a weekend we had, Rod. Man, I think that was an all-timer for this podcast for sure. We absolutely cleaned up last week. I was sweating more than I have ever sweat in my life during that red flag. I was just praying they would not just end the race, call it good, let the heavens open up. Like, we're sitting on all these things we're going to cash. I did not want to go back and ruin it, lose it all, something bad to happen. And then we go back to racing and we cashed even more bets. So it panned out very nicely. The racing gods were looking to pay us back after a rough Daytona last week in the Cup Series. But, man, it was a lot of fun. It was, again, the statistics and everything point you there, but a lot of luck comes into play with it, and circumstances have to fall correctly. And my God, did they try to blow things at points for us? And I was so mad at Alonso at one point during that race because I thought he completely fucked it, or his team fucked it, and it ended up working out. It ended up being great. But that race, man, and I said it in the Discord too as the race was going on, like, might have been the most exciting race of the year. There were so many things going on, so many different stories and action, and this was happening and that was happening, and rain and no rain, and rain on this half of the track and not this half of the track, and this and that, and this guy's doing that, and he pitted. Why did he pit? And now he pitted under the red flag, and just everything in the whole race was entertaining, exciting. Max Verstappen still wins, but guess what, Rod? How do you bet? I hear it so many times. How do you bet on F1 when the same guy wins every week? This is how you bet on it, Rod. What a week. Going to take a little victory lap. We're put the nose right back to the grindstone. We got another race this week. Obviously, we're going to be talking about. We've got more bets for it. Put the work in again. Going to try and replicate the success, but definitely got to enjoy a little bit when you cash some big ones like we did. Man, it was an exciting race too. On top of it, like, that's the race fan in me still wants to see a good race, even when we're cashing big bets. So I was pumped for that, and it was a really fun time on Sunday.
This thing, like you said, it had it all. I mean, you could probably write some sort of Hollywood script over exactly how this one shaped out. There was all sorts of strategies, tires being put on, intermediates. Do we stay on slicks? Do we try to go full wet? What do we do? Like, who's doing what? And then safety cars and cautions. And All that was left was for Godzilla to come and just sort of stomp all over the track and try to take cars with them. And so, again, like I said, the race fan in me had a lot of fun watching this race, considering the fact that we definitely, had a lot of stuff going on all over the place. So definitely, like we said, had a great opportunity and a great race, but more than anything, cashed a lot of gigantic bets. So I guess we should probably,
There is a couple of, I know we talked about this before, but I found things after we talked. There is a couple of small news items, nothing too crazy, but as I was kind of reading through some stuff here, Liam Lawson is going to be back in the Daniel Ricciardo car. Oh man, obviously the broken hand, that happened after we recorded last week. Obviously it happened in, I think it was FP2. Unfortunate. Lawson ran a very good race, especially on such short notice, like just jumping in. I think he got that FP3 in qualifying, but that was it. So, props to him for having a good race and a good chance for him. Also, the qualifying tire thing is back this week, Rod, that they used. I believe, was it Hungary where they used this? Yeah, it was Hungary where they used it. The second trial of the alternative tire allocation, ATA as they're calling it. So instead of 13 sets as a normal event, it'll be 11 per team, 3 sets of hards, 4 sets of mediums, 4 sets of softs. More strict rules regarding the usage in qualifying. So they'll be mandated to use the hard compound in Q1, the medium in Q2, the soft in Q3. We did see that lead to a big mix-up there, right? And Lewis Hamilton ends up getting the pole. Things were different. It wasn't just Max going out doing Max things, and not that can't happen, but I do think that's going to be something to keep an eye on for sure, because could make a difference definitely in how the starting grid goes. Maybe I should have rethought some of these bets with that going on, but that's okay.
I went light on practice and qualify. In fact, I don't have any practice qualifying bets this time. I feel like, especially too with that news of this, it kind of makes it a little more up for grabs. Is it going to be Max? Probably. But the rest of it kind of makes me a little uncomfortable trying to put it on something we've only seen once before, and these drivers still don't necessarily have a grasp on this tire strategy, because it stops you from just throwing the softs on there and balling out from second one of qualifying. And you really do have to put a lot more thought into it. And then at the same time, you kind of don't have to put any thought in it. You're going to run the hard compound. You're going to run the soft compound when you're going to run. So sort of takes that out of your hands too. So I guess getting your mindset ready for the hards, and then in Q3, if you make it that far, right, throwing the softs on, and obviously we know Max Verstappen is probably going to end up making it all the way too. So, does that mean he's going to get the pole? That is probably, but I don't want to take that chance.
Yeah, agreed. I think, and honestly, as I had read that a little bit ago, it changed one of the bets I was going to give out. I had a bet that, trying to find ways to bet on Max, and I was coming into the weekend, and we'll get into it. I truly expect him to win by a big margin this week. So I was looking at him fastest qualifier, fastest lap, win the race, plus 160, you're getting a good price. But the tire thing changes. I took that one off. I'm not going to do that one, because I do think that qualifying could be a big difference. And maybe just Max does Max things and then gets it. Like, obviously it could still happen, but I do think it changes it up, and maybe that doesn't happen this week.
Maybe.
Maybe.
All right, well, let's go over the Hungarian Grand Prix. But first, let me tell you about our Bankroll Challenge, our college football Bankroll Challenge over on the SGP. College football is back. Celebrate with us. We're giving away a bunch of cash in our college football Bankroll Challenge. It's free to enter. It's a season-long contest. You get $1,000 for first place, $500 to second, but prizes double up to $2,000 and $1,000 if you're a Patreon subscriber for the college football season. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/bankroll or click the link on the app. Speaking of college football, fans, are you ready for week 1? DraftKings Sportsbook is, and they're hooking you up with a can't-miss offer to start the season strong. This week, new customers can bet just $5 on any college football game and score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Anything can happen in college football. Your team can go from unranked to dynasty mode in just a couple of years. Change comes by fast, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you need to bank on the one thing that doesn't. That's great offers from DraftKings Sportsbook. If you are looking for good lines to get down on, I will point you toward my Army football. They're 10-point favorites over the University of Louisiana Monroe. And also, I'll give you Fresno State, Purdue. I'm a homer. I love myself some Fresno State. They are +4 against Purdue. That's a pretty close line. I know we don't have Jake Hainer anymore, but I'll still take Fresno State in the points at -110. Still a lot of talent left on that team. Still Mountain West champions. So go grab that one. That can be one of your great $5 bets for your DraftKings wallet. Less more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code SGP. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any college football game. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. Crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See DraftKings.com/sportsbooks for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.com. Sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms. All right, Cody. It was, of course, like we said, the Dutch Grand Prix, Max's hometown, Red Bull's stomping grounds, all that stuff. But we cleaned house, like you said. Well, let's just give credit where credit's due. You, my friend, kicked some ass in this one. Found us some really great bets. But let's go over the card and total before we get to the really, really good stuff.
Yeah, again, it was a great week. Took total classified finishers between 17 and 18 inclusive. That was at -110. Also gave out over 19.5 at +550. Over 19.5 definitely did not cash. But I think we did hit, it was 17th. So we did hit the 110. I said that was the one I really liked, obviously. Was going to go bigger on that and then just take the gamble on hitting the over. Staying away from classified finishers here this week. This track has not been nice to classified finishers. I actually almost considered taking an under for the first time this year, Rod, but I don't know if I want to play with that since the overs have been so good to us. But yeah, this one hit -110 was a nice solid way to kick off the card.
It was a fantastic way to kick off the card. Something I'm going to stay away from too from now on. I'm pretty much not going to give out any of these qualifying fastest speeds. There was a little bit of confusion as to what it was. Was it the speed trap? Was it the overall speed? So Red Bull did not get it, believe it or not. Unfortunately, it's crazy to think that Red Bull was not the speed traps were Lewis Hamilton. Actually, in qualifying speed trap, Lewis Hamilton had the fastest speed at 3:13.4. Carlos Sainz was second. Believe it or not, Max Verstappen at the speed trap, 3:07.2 in qualification for this race. So crazy to think, though, that's what it turned out. Hamilton, Sainz, Alonso, Gasly, Leclerc were the top 5 as far as speeds were concerned at the speed trap. Maximum speed, Verstappen hit you at the finish line at 228.6. So, again, I still think that's what should count at the finish line in qualifying and maximum speed. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. So we're not going to do that anymore. It's a little bit of confusion. So if you got this and it cashed for you, good luck.
It was a Red Bull plus money bet. It's hard to ever argue about that, and it involves speed. I mean, come on. Next up for me, I had Pierre Gasly. Points finish, +135. Turns out the biggest mistake here, Rod. I should have took him to finish on the podium because he did. He got it done. Thanks to the late penalty by Carlos Sainz there, or rather by Checo to push him back, the 5-second penalty at the end. So Gasly gets a podium, but definitely cashed the points finish for us, +135. And like I talked about before, not cashing before the red flag, but cashing after the race. Alpine double points. I almost didn't give it out. I kind of tossed it out there as an extra, 5-1. This one did hit. I'm glad I took it. Ocon was 11th when the red flag came out for the weather. They're late. They get restarted. And Russell actually has the issue and drops back, which is what I was afraid would happen to Alonso. That's why I didn't want him to start the race. Luckily, it wasn't Alonso. So this one cashed. Got the backdoor cover on the Alpine double points, 5-1. This was a very nice hit.
It was a very nice hit, in fact, and it was like I said, it was just one of those ones where you had to hold your breath and you're like, oh my God. And then Russell dropped like a rock, which took him out of contention for my bet.
He ended up having, he pulled on pit road and retired from the race late, obviously late enough to still make him a classified finisher. Thank you. Whew. But yeah, that gave the spot to Ocon, and cashed the 5-1 for us.
Yeah, Mercedes, I had both to finish in the top 6. Obviously, the boost was a lot of the reason why I took it. Well, one lived up to that. Lewis Hamilton did finish in 6th. But Russell, man, he started in 3rd and just did not have. And then, of course, pit strategies too. People were trying to figure out what was going on. He was trying to figure out what was going on. And then all of a sudden his car, as we know, just sort of gave out on him. Yeah, he was a qualified finisher, but he pulled off the track and he just couldn't finish. He ran 62 of 72. I'm sorry, he ran all 72 laps, but again, just pulled off late and was like, I don't have this car anymore. I've lost it. Finished 17th, last of the qualified finishers. It was just not a good day for George Russell once the green flag dropped. Obviously, qualifying was really good for him. Qualified in 3rd. Great, fantastic. Lewis Hamilton qualified in 13th. Had to scratch his way to a 6th place finish. That was a pretty gutsy race from him to climb all those spots, because we know passing's not easy. In F1, it's very easy to start where you finish. But, unfortunately, we just couldn't get both Mercedes into the top 6.
Yeah, they went different directions. Unfortunately for Russell, things didn't pan out. I was trying to remember. I think he was still outside the top 6 at the end there when he did have issues, but probably wasn't going to cash. But obviously him going out at the end definitely didn't help. Fernando Alonso, Rod, I called my shot last week. I went big on him. This was the guy that I was all in on. It just felt like everything lined up. His track history here had been good. And we were hoping that, Aston Martin would kind of take that step after the break and re-step back up where they had been. Took him for a top 6 finish at plus 175. He cashed that. Took him to finish on the podium at plus 625. He cashed that. Rod, we used the ladder effect, went all the way up to the top 2 finish. Again, we found this bet over on Bet365. The top 2 finish has been a lot, although they didn't like what we did to them last week, Rod, and then it's not, the numbers aren't great this week. They took that ass chewing and didn't give it back to us nicely this week. But we found that to be better than best finisher other than, because it's or whatever, because then they just have to finish in the top 2, and it's does if somebody else wins, if a Charles Leclerc had come up and won or something, you don't have to worry about, well, he wasn't the best finisher besides Max because Max wrecked or whatever happened. 33-1 for the top 2 finish. Been a great way to attack it, and I was glad we cashed a big one. Made me sweat. Like I said, they had that very, very slow pit stop. I was screaming. I was throwing things. I'm like, you stupid motherfuckers. And then it worked out, and he ended up getting back past, I think it was Checo at the time who was up in 2nd. And he got back around him, and then obviously Checo ends up with the penalty later, but he had already passed him at that point. But man, the sweat on this one was real. I was really afraid he was going to end up losing 2nd place when they went back to green flag after that break, and luckily he did not. Cash the 33-1, cash the plus 625, cash the plus 75. Whew, we're not even done yet, Rod, but what a weekend.
I'm telling you right now, it was, like you said, we were just all holding our breaths, just trying to figure out whether or not that was going to be it, because that was a huge hit. And like you said, I mean, you can only get away with it once, right? It's like parlaying the top 10s in NASCAR. When you got beat by that once, you only get away with it once, and you're fine with that.
I mean, honestly though, like the 2nd place finisher has changed so much. Like, it's not been, I know for a little bit we had the Max and Checo, but like Checo's not been finishing 2nd. It's been a mixture of people finishing 2nd. You got to hit the right one at the right time, right? And then that's part of the luck that goes into it. But all the research pointed to Alonso last week, and sometimes the research points away, and then somebody loses their wing on the first turn, and it's like, God damn it! And but it happened to hold out for us last week and cash all these, luckily.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, I had the total number of lap leaders in this race as 2, Cody. So here's the thing. I'm looking at it now in that I see that I thought there was only 2 lap leaders, right?
It's I thought so.
Lando Norris, because I'm seeing that Lando Norris led a lap in this in one of the results. I don't remember when he led a lap. Do you?
I do not. I'd have to,
because I remember it being Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen flopping around the lead. I don't remember
I don't
That's
remember
all
Lando being up there to
Yeah.
lead. We'll have to double check into that one.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that ended up cashing because it was just Red Bull 1 and 2. There was nothing else in that. Again, like I said, the only way that this would have lost is if Verstappen would have led every single lap, and that didn't happen for sure.
Yep. Yeah, and then I tossed again. It's long shot winners. We hit some of those last year, and when other people were winning races, and with Max winning, like long shot winners just don't happen this year. They haven't been, right. He's at 9 in a row. He's not looking like he's going to slow down anytime soon. So instead, we've been tossing the darts at the fastest lap. Hit it again this time, Rod. Russell at 12-1. He did have the fastest lap for a portion of that race. I was like, okay, we're sitting pretty decent here. And then Alonso snagged it right before that red flag. Another reason I was hoping we didn't go back. I'm like, God, don't let Max end up coming out pissed off and setting the fastest lap. He did not, luckily. So our friends over at DraftKings have given us 28-1 on Alonso, fastest lap. And that one hit as well. So, yeah, I mean, Alonso just absolutely cleaned up for us this week. The plus 175, the plus 625, the plus 2,800, plus 3,300. Like, I need to get some Fernando Alonso gear, I think, after this weekend because he cashed some massive bets for us, and it was a good weekend.
It was indeed. All right. Well, it is showing. I'm seeing that now. Lap 2, Lando Norris led, which was crazy.
That's unfortunate. I guess we didn't cash that one, but
well.
We get the rest of them, Rod. It's okay.
Indeed. I had Hamilton on the podium at plus 120, or Russell on the podium at plus 625. Obviously, neither one of them did it. So, unfortunately, that bet did not cash. And the only one that came closest was Hamilton at 6th place. But, just not a good day for Mercedes overall. They'll try to lick their wounds and come out firing in the next race.
But plus 625, like, after Russell qualifies third fastest, like, that was a hell of a bet. Still, I mean, the race circumstances didn't work out for him. And I'm trying to remember, he got damage early, maybe, and then obviously had other issues out throughout the race. But I mean, to get that at plus 625, and then he starts in the top 3, like you said, a lot of times the drivers finish in the area at least of where they qualified, and he could have easily got on that podium at that price. So I don't think that one was necessarily a bad bet by any means. And Hamilton to finish on the podium ever, I don't think is a bad bet because we know how good he is, right? So I think even though they didn't hit, still some good bets for you.
I concur. All right, speaking of good bets, we got plenty on the other side of the break because we are going to start breaking down this Italian Grand Prix. But August is almost over. It's probably going to be over by the time you listen to this. And you know what that means. Time is running out for you to draft your fantasy football team on Underdog Fantasy. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you do is one live snake draft. No waivers, no trades. You set it, forget it. Underdog takes care of all the rest. Try it out now with Underdog's Best Ball Mania tournament. It's the largest fantasy football contest of all times. $15 million. You heard me right. $15 million. Total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Do you have what it takes to win it all? Who am I asking? Yeah, you do. Time is now. Last day to draft your fantasy football team is September 7th. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. Sign up with promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. Make sure you're checking out the Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon. Join the family just like the rest of us did. Cody and I, we started out just as lowly fans of the SGPN, and here we are hosting shows every single day. You might be able to do that, or you might just be able to have some fun with us and hang out, be part of that SGPN family. Sign up to the Patreon, get exclusive access to contests, including the NFL Win Totals contest with a $1,000 first place prize. This week's weekly Patreon pick'em is all week 1 college football. Prize is a cornhole board, perfect for any college football tailgate. Patreon's a great way to support the network and fight back against corporate gambling. SportsGamblingPodcast.com/Patreon, SportsGamblingPodcast.com/Patreon. All right, we do go to the Italian Grand Prix. It is the Formula One Pirelli Gran Premio d'Italia 2023. This is flat out a foot. It's just a foot. I'm not even going to go any farther. It is a foot. This track is a foot.
Oh boy, I forgot. I've been getting bad at this. I've forgotten to look. Let me see here. No arguments. I mean, you could maybe do a boomerang, I guess, if it was a little more curved at the part there, but Yeah, it's a long foot, long skinny foot, but with a fat ankle, but a foot nonetheless.
A foot nonetheless. First Grand Prix here, 1950. They will run 53 laps around this 5.793 kilometer track for a race distance of 306.72 kilometers. And for those of you who are trying to make that into miles, give me 1 second. It is 190, just like every other race that's out there. So again, 53 laps around this almost 6K, right? So we know 3K is a 5K is 3 miles. So that's about what it is. All right. Yay for conversion.
I'm glad you're doing the conversion because I'm not good at the conversions.
The only reason that I know is because I used to run back in another life, and 5Ks were where I used to like to run because it was only 3.1 miles. So, a 5K for this 5.7 is about 3.5 miles. So that is where we're at. But yes, it was Rubens Barrichello who holds the lap record on this 121.046. He did that in 2004. So again, we're set up for a very historic race. They have taken this track so many years in a row. Looking forward to yet another one. When you scroll through this one, it goes back to 1931, even the history on this track. But the first Grand Prix, Italian Grand Prix, was 1950. So yeah, a lot of history.
Yeah, we've got a little bit to look back on, and obviously, the race earlier this season that was going to be in Italy at the Emilia. I always suck at that word, but you know what race I'm talking about. It was canceled, so of course this will be the first visit to Italy. Maybe that will be good news for Ferrari as they travel back home. We might talk about them in a little bit, Rob.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. So let's start talking about them now, or maybe not Ferrari, but let's start talking about the race now. Let's start laying out these bets.
All right. Well, Pierre Gasly, told you he cashed some bets for us last week, Rod. Why get off the train now? He finished on the podium. He's riding the hot streak. They made some big changes going into the summer break there, and I think they paid off, I would say. So he is minus 138 for a points finish. A little bit juiced up, Rod, but you won't pay the juice if you lose. And I mean, he's coming off of a podium finish just to finish inside the top 10. Similar to over on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, we talked about with Chris Buescher, like, yeah, he's not a guy you always expect to be up there, but he won 3 straight oval races in a row, and you were still getting him at barely juiced up to finish in the top 10. It's the same thing here with Gasly. Like, he's coming off of a podium finish. All he has to do is finish inside the top 10 in the points. I think at minus 138, that is worth the price. And also, Rod, a top 6 finish at plus 800. It's coming off of a podium last week. I know he's not a top 6 car on a week-to-week basis, but he can definitely get it done. So he had the podium last week, like we talked about. He was 11th at Belgium. A couple of rough weeks before that at the British Grand Prix and at Austria. But he had a 7th place finish at Monaco, an 8th place finish at Miami at the USGP, 9th place finish at Saudi Arabia. He was 9th at Bahrain. He's finished in the points in 7 of the 13 events so far this season. And then again, the momentum. Oh, yeah, Rod, he has a win here in an AlphaTauri as well in 2020, I believe, is when he won that race. So it's been a good place for Gasly in the past, and he's coming off of riding some good momentum. So I think the top 10 at minus 138 is a really, really good bet. And there's a lot of value to be had at top 6 at plus 800, 8-1 for a top 6. Yes, please.
Indeed. I do like Gasly too. I really do. And the books, obviously, there's very rarely do you see a minus this much in a F1 bet. So to have him at minus 138. Well, okay, I say that for some of the
well, the winner is the minus 400, Rod, but
let's
it's
preface that by saying
that's the thing though, is like
Max Verstappen.
It's generally either plus money or minus 400. Like there's almost no in between. Like we were talking about on the NASCAR podcast. Like these are kind of the football. Like minus 138 in football is nothing. Like you pay that all the time. And with F1, it's like usually when it's in that range, it's kind of a gross bet, or it's minus a ridiculous amount, or you got to get your big plus money ones. So this is one that I mean we don't really give out a ton of minus money bets. We have a couple this week, but I think that this is one that I just feel like it shouldn't be this low really for for what he's done. I mean, just especially coming off of a podium finish, and I get it, but momentum does count for something, and they've obviously got some stuff figured out in that program, and Ocon's been doing good as well. So yeah.
Well, speaking of that, Ocon, his teammate, he's at a points finish as well. He is plus 100 for a points finish, a little bit more than his teammate. And I'll tell you why. You look back now at what Ocon has done on this track. 2 years with Alpine, he finished 10th in 2021 and 11th in 2022. He was down a lap in that one. Unfortunately, didn't secure a points finish in that. But in the 3 races prior, right, in his Renault and the Force India teams, he got 2 6th place finishes and an 8th place finish. So in 3 or 4 of the 6 races that he's been on this track, he has had points finishes. Not bad for Ocon. Lately, it has been either points or bust for him, unfortunately, but he has finished in the points in 7 races this season. Cody talked about it too. 7 of 13 races he's finished inside the points this season. It's not bad for him at all to figure that this Alpine team is going to be strong here. Last week he finished in the points. The week before that he finished in the points. Had 3 pretty terrible races in a row before that, but 8th place in Canada, 8th place the week before that, 3rd place in Monte Carlo, 9th in Miami. So again, he's been able to put solid runs together. He looks decent week in and week out. And if you're getting plus money for him just to finish in the points, I definitely think that's a pretty solid bet, given that, you know, a lot of these points for the Mercedes, for the Ferrari, all that, they're so juiced up that you got to find some of those outside of them to take. So give me Esteban Ocon in the points at plus 100.
And you can get Alpine double points finish. It's not as good as it was last week, but still plus 250. I think that's not a bad bet if you think they're both going to get up there. So definitely something to consider as well. But I love Ocon as well. And you know, you're getting them at even money, so that's a nice thing. Also, Rod, next up for me. All my eggs were in the Alonso basket last week. I was riding with Aston Martin. I'm going to shift that over to a very scary and a very fragile basket this week. But I'm going to go into the Ferrari basket a little bit, Rod. It can be scary to do. I understand. And if Ferrari just shits the bed or has bad calls, you can't really get too upset because you kind of have to expect it. But that being said, Rod, this is Italy. They're going to show up. This is their one chance to be on the home turf this week. Their fans are going to be crazy insane this week. You know how Ferrari fans can be. This is their chance to shine. We talk about it in NASCAR a lot, right? They've got something circled on the calendar. This is the one. Now, can they stay out of their own way to actually cash some of these bets? Is going to be the biggest question, because we know that's the problem. But despite some of the struggles, it has been very up and it's been very down for Ferrari on different weeks and with different drivers. Sometimes it's up for one and down for the other. But all you have to do is get them to hit on an up week, and that's what we're looking for here. So I'm going to take go back to that top 2 finish bet. Again, numbers got to neuter down a little for sure. Not as good as it was with Alonso last week. I'm going to take Charles Leclerc to finish top 2 at 10-1. And then I'm going to take Carlos Sainz to finish on the podium at plus 550. You can actually hit both of these bets, technically, obviously, if they both finish up there. Hoping for one of them at least, though. For Shaw, last week, the bad side of Ferrari, right? We saw it. 19th place finish, retired early. Things just went bad from the word go, maybe even before that. But the previous race, the Belgium GP, he finished on the podium. He had a 2nd place finish at Austria. He's finished 4th at Canada. He's finished 4th at Canada, Rod. He finished 3rd at Baku. Last year in this race, he finished 2nd here. He finished 4th here in 2021. He won this race in, what was it, 2019, I think. So he's been good here in the past, and they've had their ups this season. That's what I'm looking for. I'm hoping this is an up week after having a down week last week. For Carlos Sainz, he was 5th last week. Not a bad finish at all. Not too far off of the podium. And then at Belgium, his was the opposite, right? It was the bad side of Ferrari again. 19th place for him. He does have 8 top 6 finishes so far this season. Has not finished on the podium yet, Rod. One could argue, why would he finish this week? I'm going to argue he's due for a podium finish. It's been a while. Time for Carlos to get back on the podium. Finished 4th in this race last week. He was 6th here in 2021, 2nd place in 2020 when he was driving for McLaren. He finished here. Again, you're taking calculated risks. Even Alonso last week, there was some risk with it, right? He hadn't been great always. That's why the numbers were kind of inflated. Numbers kind of pointed toward it. I really think Ferrari's going to be focused on this race. If they can stay out of their own way, and we could come on this show next week and talk about how these bets looked good until Ferrari got in their own way. And I'm going to say that's exactly what I said was going to happen. But I think that they've had their ups. They've had those hills. If we can get on a hill, stay there, I think that we can cash some of these. So give me Charles Leclerc plus 10-1, I guess, for a top 2 finish. And then Carlos Sainz to finish on the podium at plus 550.
I like it. Again, like you said, home track means a lot, though. That's the thing. Home track means a lot to these guys. Obviously, we know Max last week really showed exactly why. So, yeah, I mean, you got to take it for that. All right, I am going to sort of go out on a limb. The safety car in this bet is a no at plus money, at plus 160. And you're going to say, yeah, but Rod, this race ended under a safety car last year. And I get it. I mean, I know that it's always a 50-50 as to what's going on. But of course, it was really running green the whole time until Daniel Ricciardo bottomed out. This track is about the closest thing to an oval I think you're going to get really for an F1 circuit. And these guys, there's not a lot of things that can come up and bite you in the ass. I mean, this is like you said, it's kind of a boomerang in that way, where it's just a lot of it's kind of 3 angles. It's almost like Pocono, but with a few more twists and turns in it. So there's not a lot for these guys trouble to get into as far as wrecking each other. And in fact, most of the safety cars that we've seen are not necessarily because of wrecks. It's because of mechanical issues. So I don't know that we're going to get those.
We've had way less of this year, and that's been a highlight of the classified finishers thing.
Yep. And so that's what I'm saying. So and then a lot of the times that these guys withdraw, it's not necessarily a safety car. So, you know, again, I know we had one last week, but I'm banking on there not being one this week. I think they're done. I don't think they want any more of this safety car nonsense because, you know, again, we saw what it did last week. It kind of threw a lot of stuff into question. So I think they're going to try to come out, play nice, and drive hard, but try not to bring out a safety car. And I think, like I said, if mechanical issues stay away this week, I don't think we get a safety car at plus 160. I think I'll take that bet.
I like it. I think at the price you're getting it at, it's worth a look. Maybe things kind of stay clean. All right, Rod, this next one, this is a way to maybe get in on Max at plus money. This is a way to get in on the Monza curse living on. The Monza curse real quickly, Rod. 2019, Charles Leclerc wins. 2020 ends up in the tire barrier. In 2020, Pierre Gasly wins the race. 2021 ends up in the wall. 2021, Daniel Ricciardo wins. 2022 stopped on the track for mechanical failure. 2022, Max Verstappen won, Rod. We know how powerful he is. We know what he's done. Can he defeat the curse? Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. Either way, I think this bet could cash. I do feel like this one is going a little bit out on a limb because, and I'm going to make an argument against if it is Max. So I'm stealing a page out of your book with the number of race leaders, and I'm going to go with there's just one in this race at plus 200. The thought being here is, like I said before, I originally had a bet in here where Max, did everything, wins the pole, the fast lap, all the stuff. I changed my mind because of the tire thing, because I think there's a good chance maybe he doesn't start on the pole here. But if he does start on the pole, tempo of speed, I think he's going to put a blazing lap on. And I think that he's going to win by a long, long time, and he may not be any other leader. So I think at 2-1 that could cash. Now, if the curse bites Max and he doesn't qualify well, he gets some damage early, falls out of the race. Maybe it is Charles Leclerc takes the pole, whoever takes the pole. Maybe they just run away with it. Maybe it's Checo, right? It doesn't have to just be Max that runs away with it. Unlikely it's somebody else, but the possibility remains, right? At 2-1. I think that this is a good bet, and going a little bit out on a limb here, I think, but at 2-1, I think the price is right, because if it is a normal weekend and Max shows up and he qualifies on the pole and he just runs away with it, then boom, you found a way again. How do you bet on F1 when the same guy wins every week, Rod? This is a way to do that. And you're also building in some insurance in case somebody else ends up being the guy that does it. As unlikely as that may seem at this point, the possibility remains, right?
Yeah, again, to me, we've seen this all season long where Max just takes off and that's it. I mean, if he starts from the pole, you basically just chalk him in for every single lap, because even when it comes down to time to make a pit stop, he's always like, well, let me gap him 23 seconds and then I'll make the pit stop and we'll be fine. Like it's
Right.
never an issue of he's not far enough ahead to not lose anything on a pit stop. So,
yeah. And again, like if your no safety car plays into this, right? And if that's the narrative we're going to craft for this race, if there's not a safety car, the chances of whoever is in the lead taking a big lead, especially if it's Max, is even more so, right? And the field doesn't get bunched up. So I would say that would help even more spread the field out. Even during a pit stop, the leader, won't lose the lead, and it is just a one race leader. So I think that if that's the narrative we're going to build for this, and again, when you're betting on a race, you're in general, you're building a narrative that you're kind of playing towards. So I think we've built the correct narrative, and I like it.
Indeed. I'm going back to the well. It's been a while since I've given this one out. But I will say that again, at minus 135, you're only paying the juice if you lose, and you don't lose on this one. It's the fastest pit stop, Red Bull. I just marked this one down for sure. I don't know. I haven't given it out in a while because it's almost a no-brainer, but I feel so confident that they're going to nail this one this time that I have to give it out as one of the bets. And again, because I'm staying away from the practice bets, it kind of cuts into really what you can ultimately do with this. And I wanted to find something of the fastest car without, or the fastest qualifier without, but none of those seem to really move the needle for me either. So I went back to the well. Last week, Max Verstappen had not just the fastest pit stop at 2.01 seconds, but he also had the second fastest pit stop at 2.21. McLaren and Piastri had a 2.27, but Max didn't have just one, but two of the fastest pit stops in the entire race. Really, it's funny. Sergio Perez, he had the 9th fastest stop. They really didn't do Perez any sort of favors last week on the pits for sure, when normally he's the guy with the fastest pit stops. But again, it was Red Bull that had the fastest pit stop last time. Ferrari had the fastest pit stop in Belgium, but it was, of course, Red Bull right there as a quick second. Red Bull in Hungary. Yeah, I'm just telling you right now, you would win more than you lose if you bet Red Bull as the fastest pit stop week after week after week. And if you get tired of hearing me say it, you're probably tired of winning money. So, and then you're listening to the wrong show.
Who's tired of that, Rod? I mean, yeah, it's just a no-brainer. Again, it's only minus 135. Like, it's not that crazy for something that happens so often. You did bring up the practice bets too. I wanted to mention, make sure you're checking to see exactly who's going to be practicing, because I know that Felipe Drugovich, I think is how you say his name. He's going to be filling in for Stroll in FP1. He is the 2022 F2 champion. Filled in for Stroll preseason when Stroll, it was a broken hand I think he had prior to the season. I'd filled in for the practices and stuff, so he'll be jumping in, and just in case there's any other changes. We're kind of getting to that time of year where they bring up some of the prospects to get them some more laps in F1 and some time in behind the wheel. So something to keep an eye on. Obviously, we don't have any practice bets this week, so not too worried about it from our side of things. But we know you're going to make your own bets and whatnot too, so just keep an eye on it.
Indeed. All right. We have winnering. Well, we have the other last sets of bets that we're going to make.
Section that's supposed to be for winners, but we find different ways to bet on. And hey, it turned out okay for us last week, so I guess we'll keep doing it.
We'll keep doing it, but you listen on for one of our favorite shows on the network.
Hey, everybody. If you play fantasy football, especially in auction leagues,
or you're a whiskey fan.
Yes, exactly. Check out the Sports Gambling Podcast Fantasy Football Channel show, Old Fashioned Football.
Coming to you every Tuesday morning. Give us a listen. We'll bring you the latest fantasy football data, including
The Injury Report,
studs and duds,
Waiver Wire Targets,
and suggested fab.
Market Movers. After all, we are the Marks.
He is my hubby.
And she's J Mark's wifey.
And we're bringing all this to you while drinking an old fashioned and giving you our honest review of a different whiskey every week.
All that and more. Hop on over, give us a listen, come for the football, stay for the whiskey.
This ad's almost done.
Going once, going twice.
Sold.
I wanted to give this section the feel of my normal winner section where it's got a lot of bets inside of it. And I have a lot of money left over from last week when we won all the money on Fernando Alonso. So I stuffed this box, Rod. So bear with me as I have a few bets in this final box. I'm going to take the winning margin over 12 seconds. It's minus 138. Again, we do have some, we're paying a little bit of juice this week, but you're not, because you only pay the juice if you lose. The Temple of Speed, this is a fast track. If this goes how it normally goes with Max, like, again, we talked about no safety car. We talked about him running away from the field. I think that 12 seconds is you could probably triple, and Max might win by a full lap this week. Like, I can see this race going that way. Again, doesn't have to be Max. It's just the winning margin. If something happens to him, if the Monza curse comes through, somebody else can cash this bet for you. Maybe Checo runs away with it. Maybe it's Shaw. Maybe it's somebody else. But it can be hit other ways. But winning margin over 12, I really think that we're just going to see a runaway race in this one, Rod. And then this is where I pivoted earlier, because I was going to do the Max to be the fastest qualifier, lay down the fastest lap, win the race, plus 160. Talked myself out of it. I'm going to throw some darts at the fastest qualifier instead because of the tire situation we talked about earlier. I'm going to take Charles Leclerc 10-1 to be the fastest qualifier. And he has, let's see, he won the pole 2 races ago at Bahrain, or not Bahrain, at the Belgian Grand Prix. No, what the oh boy, where were we 2 races ago, Rod? I can't even read my own writing. He won the pole 2 races ago. We're just gonna go with that. And he started second place at Belgium as well. So like he's had some fast qualifying. Again, Ferrari's gonna have this circled. Want to get it done. He started in the top 3 4 times this season. He won the pole here last year, and he won the pole here in 2019. Obviously knows how to get it done. Ferrari's going to put that extra effort in. Again, I think that the tire thing, as we saw in Hungary, it can make a difference for maybe Max doesn't just win the pole like he always does, right? And he doesn't always win it because we've seen some other guys get up and get the pole this year as well. But with the tire advantage, I think that it's great to sprinkle on some longer shots here. So Charles Leclerc 10-1. Also going to take Lewis Hamilton 20-1. He did it in Hungary, right? The one other time we've tried this scenario, this situation with the tires, worked out for him. He scored the pole there. And he's gotten the pole here in 2020. He was second to Shaw in 2019, the pole in 2017. If you go back any farther than that, I'm sure he had a million poles. Obviously, he was winning everything at that point. But obviously knows how to do it here, knows how to do it with this tire setup, with the way they're doing it again this week. I think a 20-1. This one is worth a shot as well. Get a little action in earlier in the week, Rod. I like to. We didn't have any practice bets, but get some qualifying bets. And then the fastest lap dart of the week, Carlos Sainz. Again, I'm heavy in the Ferrari basket, Rod. It's a scary proposition, but I like it this week. I think this is going to be their week. They've got all the focus here. If things aren't going great, right, if he's not going to get that podium, maybe they come in late and at least say, hey, we got the fastest lap, and it's a consolation prize. At 40-1, I think he can get it done, and I think that this team, more than other teams, may go out of their way just to do it, just to say they did it at this track. And so, yeah, give me Carlos Sainz, fastest lap, 40-1.
I mean, you got to steal away points from Verstappen somehow, and throwing softs on in the last lap is the great way to do it. So definitely with you on that one. 2 weeks ago, by the way, we were in Hungary. Cody, I know it seems like forever because these races have been like ridiculously way out there. So believe me, I know. It's not like NASCAR where it hits you every single week and you got a summer break. You got to when Max feels a little.
That race was like 6 months ago. So
that's what I'm saying. Like it wasn't, but that's all right. All right. So I know that I said that I didn't really get my needle moved by too many of the winning teams without, but kind of lied to you. I did have one that I liked the whole way through, and that was Alpine to be the winning team without. Now, the reason that I went with this one is because it's literally the race winning car without Mercedes, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Red Bull, like half of the teams. So you're talking about the
is McLaren in there?
Yeah, McLaren is in there as well.
Jeez, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You're taking out pretty much everybody. Wow. So, like I said, it's Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Aston Martin, and Red Bull. So it's literally just Williams, Alpine, Alfa Romeo, Haas, and AlphaTauri. I understand
plus
why.
Money?
Yeah, at plus money. Geez. So you're getting this at plus 110 for this to happen. And I get it. I mean, look, Albon is definitely a darling, right, in the Williams camp, but Logan Sargent is the other Williams. They are at minus 125 for Williams. And really all you're doing is just banking that Alex Albon is going to be that guy, because you know it's not going to be Logan Sargent at the end of this. So Alpine, we just talked about Alpine earlier in the episode, right, with Ocon and Gasly. These guys, Gasly finished on the podium last week. Now he doesn't even have to finish on the podium to cash this one, because you could have all 6 drivers before him. He could finish in 7th and have 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferraris, 2 Red Bulls in front of him and still cash this
really
bet.
You could finish. There's 5 teams on that list, right? I mean, he could finish 11th and still cash this bet.
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot, and McLaren too, because Lando Norris is another one of those that can sneak in there and be a factor on this one as well. Given that he was the highest finisher of those last year, McLaren finished 7th, and he was the highest finisher that wasn't a Mercedes, that wasn't a Red Bull, that wasn't a Ferrari. So, I mean, now they take Lando out of it, and Pierre Gasly finished 8th. He was driving an AlphaTauri at the time, but Gasly was the one that finished outside. He finished 8th place, still would have cashed this bet if he was driving an Alpine last season. And, you know, again, Nick DeVries actually was the Williams car after Gasly, and then it was an Alfa Romeo of Zhou Guanyu. But all I'm saying is that I think Gasly is going to probably be the one to do this, like you had laid out earlier, as far as a top 6 and even a top 10. But Ocon could even surprise us and finish in 8th place or 7th place and still cash this bet. So there's a lot of wiggle room in this for Alpine, and at plus money. I definitely like that side of it, because, I mean, again, it's not like super sexy. It's not plus 9,000 or anything, but at plus 110 to cash on the 8th place driver, you know,
yeah, no,
7th place driver.
This is great. I love this. This is a good find by you, Rod. Man, I think this is a great bet to make.
I agree. All right, get out your pen and paper. It's time to go over all of these great bets that we have for the Italian Grand Prix. Cody started you out with Pierre Gasly, our friend, as a top 10 car at minus 138, and put him up to a top 6 also at 8-1. I gave you Ocon as a points finisher at plus 100. Cody gave you Charles Leclerc to finish in the 2nd position at 10-1, and Carlos Sainz to be standing next to him on the podium, where, who knows, probably 3rd, at plus 550. And then I said that there will be no safety car this race at plus 160. Cody said that only one person is going to lead this race the entire time at plus 200. I said just the pen play of the week, fastest pit stop Red Bull. Don't need to fix it if it's not broken, much like my English, at minus 135. Cody gave you the winning margin over 12 seconds at minus 138. Also threw in Charles Leclerc as the fastest qualifier at 10-1, or Lewis at 20-1. And then the fastest lap of the race, Carlos Sainz at 40-1. And I said Alpine would be the winning team without pretty much half the field at plus 110. Lock those in. You can find that plus 110 over there on our friends on DraftKings. Cody, Italy, buddy. They get to see it for the first time this season, get to have some fun. Obviously, set your DVRs because everything happens early. Unless you're an early bird, you can catch practice, you can catch qualifying and all that other good stuff. But yeah, it's an early one again.
Yeah, another 8 a.m. for me here in the Central Time. I guess that's been the one good thing I've been working on my regular job on Sunday morning. So I'm up, I'm at work. Luckily, I'm able to watch while I'm working. So that's been exciting and nice. And then I get home and my daughter and wife, I'm like, hey, one race is already out of the way for the day. There's only 8 more, so don't worry about
it. I know we're both in the same boat, but all right. Well, then let's turn everybody loose. Let's get everybody out there to start filling out their cards and having some good times out there. So, Cody, remind everyone where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, let's do it again, Rod. Last week was so much fun. Hopefully, we catch some more big bets this week. I'm excited. You can follow me on X at Husker_Zeeb. All my work's over there. Ton of football stuff out. Ton of racing stuff out. Everything. Check out the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. We'll be back again. Another special edition of the F1 Gambling Podcast later this week with the IndyCar race in Portland. Again, whenever they decide to bless us with odds, we're still waiting on that. But hopefully sooner rather than later. Check that out as well. let's go do it again. Let's go cash some money. And yeah, I'm excited to be back next week. I think we got, what is it? We got 1 week off again, but then a couple of weeks in a row, we've got some more races for us. So yeah, Singapore in a couple of weeks, and we'll definitely be back for it.
Indeed. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio, everything I got going on, whether it's here, whether it's in between media talking NASCAR, or on for frequency's sake, once again, talking NASCAR all over the place. Just look me up on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Find that link in the bio. Again, we'll be back later on this week with some IndyCar. We know you love this IndyCar. We actually see it. So you stick around for it. Thank you for that. So until then, we'll see you again. Let's go racing and let it ride.